All right, let's get right into it. Now, I know what you're thinking. That title is pretty provocative. We are constantly being told that a side hustle is the #1 way to get ahead, to build some real wealth. But what if, for a whole lot of people, it's actually a trap? That's exactly what we're going to dig into.
I mean, you hear it everywhere, right? The story is that the gig economy has opened up this brand new path to financial freedom. You get to be an entrepreneur, you take control of your income, you finally escape that 9-to-5 grind. But is that what's really going on? Or is this path leading somewhere else completely?
And hey, you can't deny how appealing that dream is. It's powerful, it's exciting, and it really speaks to something deep inside us, that desire for freedom, for some control over our own lives.
I mean, this is the pitch, isn't it? The big promise is that you're no longer just some cog in a big machine. Nope, you're the CEO of You Incorporated. Your car is your office. Your laptop is your whole business. Every single spare hour is another chance to earn. It's a really aspirational story, and you know what? Millions of people have bought into it.
Okay, but to really get what's happening here, we have to look past all that marketing hype. There's a really critical term from economics that helps explain the reality for so many of these workers.
So, the term is precarious, and it's a pretty clever word, actually. It's a mashup of precarious and proletariat, and it was basically invented to describe this growing group of people whose lives are defined by a total lack of stability. They just exist without the kind of predictability or security that a traditional job used to provide.
So what does that actually mean for someone? Well, it means there's just no job security. It means you're always hustling, spending your own unpaid time just looking for the next gig. And this is so important. It means you have zero access to traditional worker protections. You know, things like unemployment, health insurance, retirement plans, the stuff that usually comes with a regular salaried job.
So you've got this amazing dream on one side, and this pretty grim idea of the precariats on the other. So which one is it? How do we know what's really happening? Well, lucky for us, a massive study of California tax data finally lets us pull back the curtain and see what's actually going on.
Researchers got their hands on millions, and I mean millions, of individual tax returns to see who is really doing this independent contract work. And they did that by looking for a specific tax form called a Schedule C. This gives us a real hard data look under the hood of the gig economy like we've never had before.
So, what they find? First off, about 12% of working-age folks in California are reporting at least some income from independent contracting. Now, that's a pretty big chunk of people, for sure, but maybe not the massive 50% of the workforce revolution you'd expect from all the headlines, right?
But here's where it gets really interesting. Of that 12%, almost half of them, a full 45%, also have a traditional W-2 job. Right away, that tells you something huge. For a massive number of these so-called entrepreneurs, this isn't their main gig. It's just something they do on the side.
And this chart, wow, this chart really drives home another surprising find. You know, contrary to this idea of a gig economy explosion, the share of people doing this kind of work has been incredibly stable. You can see it right here. It barely grew between 2012 and 2017. It's more of a slow burn, not a wildfire. So this all leads to the biggest question of all, doesn't it? Are people using this work to build wealth, or are they just using it to get by? Is it a supplement to a good life, or is it a survival mechanism for a tough one? Okay, let's break this chart down because it's super important. It shows us how much of a person's total income actually comes from their side hustle when they also have a regular job. Now look at that vertical line right in the middle. That's your typical or median worker. For them, side hustle income is less than a fifth of their total pay. Think about that. It's a little extra cash, sure, but it is not a game changer. And the researchers, they dug in even deeper. You've basically got people who are mostly W-2 employees, people who are mostly independent contractors, and then this teeny tiny group of mixed earners right in the middle. And look at that number, only 3%. Just 3% of all earners get a truly significant part of their income from both. Most people are squarely in one camp or the other.
And this right here is probably the single biggest takeaway from the entire study. After crunching all the numbers, the data was crystal clear. Independent contractors are way overrepresented among low-earning workers and in low-income households. It's not the rich who are doing this work, it's the poor.
So this just completely flips the whole story on its head, right?
The myth we're sold is the young, savvy entrepreneur in a coffee shop building an empire on their laptop. But the reality? The actual data? It's something else entirely. It's much more likely to be older workers and people from low-income families just trying to patch together a living.
Okay, so let's bring this all back together. Remember where we started? We had the shiny promise of the side hustle, and then we talked about this dark idea of the precariat. Now it's time to connect the dots. And that connection is, well, it's pretty powerful. If you've got a stable, good-paying W-2 job, driving for a rideshare on the weekends is, extra cash for a vacation. No big deal. But what if that contract work is all you have? Especially if that income is low. Well, then it starts to look exactly like that definition of the precariat. It becomes a life of pure insecurity.
The economist who helped popularize this term, Guy Standing, he just nailed it. The hallmark of the precariat is the condition of lack of job security and the resultant precarious existence. And suddenly, that whole freedom to be your own boss thing, it starts to sound a lot more like the constant stress of not knowing if you can pay your rent next month.
So at the end of the day, all of this data leaves us with one pretty unsettling question to think about. When we celebrate the gig economy as the future of work, what kind of future are we actually talking about? Are we cheering for a future of widespread entrepreneurship and wealth? Or are we accidentally paving the way for a future of widespread precarity? The data suggests we better think about that, and think about it hard.